Guys, the psychic Baba Vanga has come out with some terrifying predictions for 2024, so let's take a look at what she had to say. First, we have the orbit alternation. It is said that for 2024, Baba predicted the alteration in the very orbit of Earth. The orbits of bodies in the solar system are determined by gravitational forces and are always prone to change. However, such alterations typically take place in a very gradual way over long time periods, so anything more radical would have dramatic outcomes for us all. Now, this could cause us humans to have a lot of problems. If this happens over a short period of time, it could spark issues including climate disruption and a spike in radiation levels. Now, NASA is real serious about protecting our planet and doesn't want this to happen. In 2022, NASA successfully altered an asteroid's orbit that was heading towards Earth. All of us have a responsibility to protect our home planet. After all, it's the only one we have, said NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. This mission shows that NASA is trying to be ready for whatever the universe throws at us. NASA has proven that we are serious as a defender of the planet. This is a watershed moment for planetary defense of all humanity, demonstrating commitment from NASA's exceptional team and partners from around the world. So if the orbit alteration happens quickly and does cause chaos, NASA will do everything they can to help us, even though they might not be able to prevent it. Next up, we have climate change. Baba has made predictions about environmental issues such as climate change, and let me tell you, climate change is already here and affecting us poorly. Sea levels along the US coastline are projected to rise on average 10 to 12 inches in the next 30 years per NOAA. For context, that will be as much as the rise in sea level measured over the last 100 years. That is not good news for the 127 million Americans in coastal counties. Now, due to climate change, flooding is expected to become more frequent and severe. By 2050, scientists expect flooding to occur approximately 10 times more than it does today. Climate change is also altering ecosystem productivity, exacerbating the speed of invasive species, and changing how species interact with each other and with their environment. These changes are reconfiguring ecosystems in unprecedented ways, and if we don't start to try and fix all of this soon, we are just screwed. Now we have nuclear attacks. Baba anticipates a major country is conducting nuclear weapon tests or attacks this year. Now, who, where, and when has not been predicted, but there are a lot of viable options. The United States has approximately 4,000 nuclear warheads in its arsenal. Russia is testing bombs, and also newly designed nuclear weapons can create radioactive tsunamis that render targeted areas unlivable for decades. Rogue nations such as Iran and North Korea are desperately trying to obtain nuclear weapons, and according to CNBC, China is rapidly expanding its nuclear arsenal and could have 1,000 nuclear warheads by 2030, part of Beijing's ambitious military buildup. Now, in 2021, humanity has about 13,410 nuclear weapons, which is too high for me, but now that it's 2024, I'm sure there's thousands more, and I just don't like that. Moving on to droughts. Okay, so she did not predict this for this year. This is something she's already predicted that's come true. Yep, you've heard that right. Some of her predictions have come true. Baba apparently predicted a number of extreme weather events in 2022. She prophesied that a number of large cities around the world would be hit by large-scale droughts and water shortages. Now, that year, the UK had its driest July since 1935, officially declaring drought on August 12th. Meanwhile, other countries in Europe also faced drought, including France, Italy, and Portugal. Extreme droughts measured by surface soil moisture covered almost 50% of global land areas in 2022, marking the second most widespread year since 1980. In many places, these droughts were also accompanied by unprecedented heat waves. It was so shocking that a study titled Understanding and Attribution of Extreme Heat and Drought Events in 2022, Current Situation and Future Challenges, examined the events from a global perspective, shedding light on the causes and implications of these extreme weather phenomena. Now, hopefully this was just a one-time thing, but with climate change, anything can happen. Now let's talk about the floods. Again, these floods already happened, but it's still scary that she predicted these. She claimed that Australia and Asia would experience floods, and it was reported in 2022 that heavy rain across southeast Australia this month has forced thousands of people from their homes. Flooding has affected at least 16 rivers in the states of New South Wales and Victoria, as well as the island state of Tasmania. millennia. The flooding has resulted from heavy rain over areas with full catchments and soils still saturated by 2 years of wet La Nina summers. For the first time in decades, some dams are at capacity. Sydney has experienced its wettest year on record, while in other regions, century-old October rainfall records have been broken. In a single hour on October 7th, Melbourne received half its average monthly rainfall. Now that is just crazy. Then heavy monsoon rains and flash flooding ravaged several Southeast Asian countries, ending the lives of dozens of people, forcing thousands to flee their homes, and it damaged key agricultural areas. In October that year, it was said that intense rain was expected to continue throughout Thailand, where 59 of the country's 77 provinces had already been hit by floods, affecting about 450,000 homes and more than 100 hectares. So it seems like she was right again. Now we have solar storms. Baba Vanga is also believed to have predicted a powerful solar storm that would affect Earth's climate. In 2023, she predicted a terrible solar storm. Now, while solar activity is a lot more regular than you may think, there were multiple notable solar flares that occurred. X-class flares are big major events that can trigger planet-wide radio blackouts and long-lasting radiation storms. If you didn't know, there had been 12 X-class flares in 2023. Now my question is, why didn't anyone tell us about this? It's absolutely terrifying, and the fact that it happened 12 times is insane to me. Space weather experts at NASA and other agencies take this threat seriously, and they closely monitor the sun for potentially hazardous activity, but if a big enough storm or sun flare were to happen, it would put the world in absolute chaos, and that is not something I want to experience in my lifetime. Then there's earthquakes. Some interpretations suggest Baba has predicted significant natural disasters, including earthquakes. While we have gotten better at predicting earthquakes, that doesn't mean we know when all of them will happen or how big they will be. Now, when I hear about the possibility of a major earthquake, I always think of the San Andreas Fault. And if you're a dedicated viewer, you might know that I talk about this fault quite a lot when it comes to natural disaster videos because it's so scary. Now, the risk is currently concentrated on the southern section of the fault, aka the region around Los Angeles, because strong earthquakes have occurred relatively recently on the central 1857 and the northern 1906 segments of the fault, while the southern section has not seen any similar rupture for at least 300 years. That means it's due to rupture any day now. All the data suggests that the fault is ready for the next big earthquake, but exactly when the triggering will happen and when the earthquake will occur is unknown, which I don't like hearing about because it freaks me out. I mean, I live on the East Coast too, so I don't know why it scares me so much, but it really does. Now on to the ice caps melting. Baba said that from 2033 to 2045, the polar ice caps will melt, causing ocean levels to rise, but bad news, that is already happening to us. If emissions continue to rise unchecked, the Arctic could be ice-free in the summer by 2040. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that freaks me out. If this happens, bad things can start to happen. Less ice means less reflected heat, meaning more intense heat waves worldwide, but it also means more extreme winters. Then there's the issue of food. Polar vortexes, increased heat waves, and unpredictability of weather caused by ice loss are already causing significant damages to crops on which global food systems depend. This instability will continue to mean higher prices for food, and guys, I'm already struggling to buy groceries as it is. Now, this could also affect wildlife. If there's less sea ice, animals that depend on it for survival must adapt or die. Loss of ice and melting permafrost isn't good for polar bears, walruses, Arctic foxes, snowy owls, reindeer, and many other species. As they are affected, so are the other species that depend on them, in addition to people. Up next is attacks. Baba has claimed that there will be many attacks on the world in 2024. First of all, she claims there will be an assassination attempt on Vladimir Putin. He's not very well liked, so he has a lot of security, but it appears that he'll need to watch his back even more this year, as it said he'll face an assassination attempt, not by an international agent, but someone from his own country. Still, Baba only predicted an attempt on Putin's life, so he'll probably survive. Then she said there'll be an attack on Europe, and Europe is supposedly set for an attack by extremists. Now, she didn't say where exactly in Europe these strikes would take place, so I'd just be overly cautious there. And lastly, we have volcanoes erupting. Baba has also predicted volcanic eruptions affecting various parts of the world. The Lake Toba supervolcano on the Indonesian island of Sumatra is currently home to the largest volcanic lake on Earth, formed 74,000 years ago when it last blew in the biggest eruption for 25 million years. It is estimated that around 2,800 cubic kilometers of volcanic ash and lava were thrown into the atmosphere, and now it may be about to erupt again. Now, this isn't the only supervolcano. Oh no. Now, the question about supervolcanoes, as it turns out, isn't whether one could destroy all life on Earth, it is when it will do it again. Now, around 200 million years ago, a supervolcano erupted with such insistent energy that 75% of the species on the planet were eradicated. It was so gigantic that it pulled apart North America and Africa and created the Atlantic Ocean in between. So could we have a supervolcano erupt this year? I hope not, because then we'd just all be doomed. Well, that's all for our list of the top 10 scary natural disasters Baba Vanga predicted for 2024. Do you think any of these predictions will come true? Let us know in the comments down below, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. I'm your host Emily, and we'll see you next time. Peace.